All right, all you devils out there, how's it going? Happy Friday. Sam here with you. It's the 4th of June, just a hair after noon. Well, Bitcoin update on the way here. Well, we haven't done a lot since last Friday. Just stuck in this range here between the 38 and the 23, just kind of going sideways. I'm not going to bore you with the analysis in here. We've been through that, I think 3 weeks in a row here. This continues to be my primary. In case we have some new viewers here, I'm of the thinking that the 1-2 here, we have an incomplete impulse off of the COVID low. Right? Many disagree with that, but that's my primary. Now, so as we sit here, you got to look at that and say, okay, well, is this potentially our low? Or if we're going to push off of here, well, how do we get out of here? All right, if you're an Elliottian, you're looking for some sort of a finishing pattern here, because the alternative or the alternate is so very bearish that I think you'd have to really there'd have to be just a quantum change in the macro environment, which certainly is possible, right? I mean, Jesus Christ, at this point, a goofy tweet from Elon is moving the market at a rate that is, it's annoying, right? If you're a bull, right, it's frustrating. But who's getting whipped around here, right? You got to ask yourself, right? So I mean, our long-term whales are people that are thinking about where Bitcoin will be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years. Is that who's getting whipped around here? Probably not, right? We all know who's getting whipped around here, right? Same people getting whipped around in the meme stocks, right? And I'm not. Oh man, you got to be careful about what you say. I'm not making light of the success people are having trading AMC and GameStop and whatever else is the Wall Street bets, right? I'm happy for them, right? If little guys can take some money from the big guys, I'm all for it. That said, right, as a trader, and we're looking, I'm here, I'm on a daily chart. Now, there's nothing here that's happened that has just disrupted my long-term view. So who's getting whipped around, right? That's likely going to be small retail players that are trading with leverage that, are just going with what's the momentum today, right? So again, it's not that I'm suggesting that Bitcoin couldn't have more to go in this retracement, and I'm certainly not making light of the success that day traders are having in some of those stocks. But when you just kind of pull back and think about it, saying, okay, who's getting whipped around here? Right? Is it the whales? Now, if whales are moving and we see lots of volume and got a lot of Bitcoin hitting the exchanges, different story. But right now, I don't think there's anything happening other than on every sell-off, whales step in and just swallow it whole. They'll take all the Bitcoin you'll sell to them. They just absorb, right? Because they're not worried about where it's going to be, a month from or a week from now, or they're thinking about where it's going to be longer term, right? So enough said there. So as we sit here, you have to look at that and say, well, if this is our low here, you could kind of talk yourself into it. From this distance, you could look at it and say, all right, well, shit, look at this. We got some pretty good wick rejection here. We've come down and tested the prior support. We're right on the edge of value here. This is the volume profile that I drew here, and I should note here we are in log scale. So I've just wicked off the edge of value, right? So that we poked through it with wicks. I mean, just from price action, you could look at that, right? Elliott aside, just looking at the price action, again, log scale, well, that's wick rejection that is not to be ignored. I mean, if we were just gonna roll over here, which we might, right? We can't eliminate that possibility. Well, all of this, right? They're going to be longs there that are going to try to defend, right? And you can see them here, right? People that took it long here are defending here. You can understand why that's in blue. All right, so if we're coming down further, well, then we're looking at a 5. Well, there's only, with your Elliott hat on, and we touched on this a little bit last week, if that's going to roll over and we're going to turn into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, we really have only 2 possibilities, right? Well, we have fewer possibilities. Let me rephrase, right? So, okay, so we got 5 coming down. Could be an A. Could have a B. Could be heading lower for a C. All right, we're going to come down to the 18 high or 19 highs. Well, you could do it, right? You could do it and not kill the bull, right? You wouldn't kill the impulse. It's possible. Right? We have to, as a trader, you have to consider that possibility here. If we come down in a 5, well, what is that going to imply? Well, it's either starting or ending, right? So, right? We one or the other. The only other way, if we're going to come down here and put the 4 here after coming out of a 5, the only other way that plays, right, in my view, right, is that we've got to do it this way, right? We looked at this last week. I've got that. We'd have to go A, expand the B, and then finish with the 5 down here to get our C, and then carry on, right? So if we roll over and you're a bull, that consider that as one of your scenarios, right? That we could end up that way. So that being the case, right, will kind of remain to be seen if we're going to get there. It is interesting, right, that it's not uncommon, right, between 38 and the 23, right, prime zone for a 4. So you got to be asking yourself, well, can we be done here? Well, of course, every Elliottician or technician or anyone who's drawn a few trend lines is staring at this saying, well, clearly it's a triangle. Clearly it's a triangle. Well, okay, right, so I'm not suggesting it's not just yet. All right, triangles have to prove themselves, right? So if we look here, this is not as here, let me pull out here for a second and just put it in perspective. Okay, so a couple things to note. One, again, we looked at this last week. So here, let's go. Log scale, we're at the 38 at the median line. Take it out of log scale, we're at the golden zone. So technically significant on this low, regardless of whether you are looking in log or not. Now, at the range that we're in, if you're pulling out by 4 hours and above, I think you certainly got to look at it in both. So there's the triangle everybody's looking at. Well, you got to kind of dig into that a little bit. Right? So the assumption is, okay, sideways, we're not progressing the trend, we're not going higher or lower. This is congestion at prior congestion, right? It all makes sense. Here we go. So what are we anticipating? Well, we know that triangle, if it's going to resolve with the trend being established once we did this and put in the lower high and the lower low, well, then we're coming out lower. Well, okay, that's certainly possible. I once again, would not kill the bullish impulse that is my primary, but I'm not rooting for it. Now, if it comes down here, I mean, I've got capital on the side waiting for that. If it does, right, that would be the sale of the year, right? In my view, right here, here's structure down here. If we're coming down, so if we're going to transition from between the 38 and the 23 down to the 38 to the 50. Right, you can kind of see how that might play, right? I'm not suggesting it wouldn't, but you got to dig in there. Don't just assume, right? Fuck, everybody on Twitter is calling it a triangle, so I guess I got to short it if I want to make money because that's so obvious. Well, one thing that you'll find that is not uncommon in the market is that if everybody thinks it's a triangle, there's a reasonable expectation that it won't be a triangle. And right, Bitcoin rarely does what's easy. So again, I'm not suggesting that this couldn't pull down here and break down. We go into a new range, but right now, let's just dig into that for a minute. So let's not assume it. Let's look at it and say, well, technically, can I make sense of that? Well, there's a all of this wick action here. Where we're going to focus on is we're going to go all the way down to the 15, or if not lower. This is making this very, very difficult, right? So we see the contraction. So here, the entire consolidation has been inside of this zone here, right? So I think that's a daily candle as well. So we're just going sideways inside of this, right? Nobody has the advantage. Well, pardon me, bears would have the advantage because of the trend moving lower, but now we have lack of trend. Look at the Vegas wave. We're just going sideways. They're all clustered on top of each other. So we're just in this box, right, being contained, and we could stay here for a while. So don't assume, oh shit, man, here we go. So if we start coming down, I wouldn't assume that we're heading much lower. And part of that is you got to look at this and say, okay, well, if this is a triangle, let's count it out and see how that plays. Well, this, which is defining the whole range, is the first problem you run into, because you got to look at that and say, well, that's. I mean, what did we do here from 29 to 42? Well, it's something, right? And it certainly is a very aggressive reaction. So just look at it. Okay, so what's happening down here? This is a massive in-your-face rejection by bulls. Oh, bear's going to say, "Oh, fuck you," right? And we'll come down here. What happens again? Again, massive rejection from bulls. Bears, we're going after it, right? So every time you got to pivot, right, just becomes a target. All of these are targets. Bears are pushing to get that low, break it down. Not so fast, bears, not so fast. So they're attempt, reject, attempt, reject, attempt. Well, the point where I'm trying to go with this is something. We got to account for this. So if you're thinking triangle, we can't ignore this. So massive move, massive rejection move. You can call it impulsive, right? I'm out here in a 60. Well, if we got to account for, so if this is the 3, right? So you use the lowest push down here. If this is the 3, here, let me pull out here, and so I can get it all together here. Now note, I'm still in log scale here. I guess it doesn't really matter at this level. Okay, if this is the 1, right, which is what most will be looking at here, and this is the 2 here. I've just got alternates here. If it's 1, 2, and that's the 3. Right, bumping right into the golden zone, and we're going 4. Okay, well then what are we calling this? Well, you got to think A, B, C, D. E's likely in. Right, that's what you're thinking. So I mean, unless you're kind of force fitting here, I don't see another way to resolve this. Right, so it would appear that the E, right, we're going to allow, so either you're going to allow for overthrow in the E or underthrow, right? So it's common to do either, right, in Elliott. So if this is an overthrow in the E, then the 4 is in. A, B, C, D, E. Here we go. Okay, well, let's think about what that would mean. So if we're coming down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, at this point, it looks like I've got a textbook impulse that's underway. Okay, so let's think about that. Let's put it in context. Well, coming from here, if that's 1, and we're going to go 2 and 3, 4, 5. Let me just, let's take them up. And it's easy to get mixed up if you don't keep track of them. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we're going to, right, it's always going into the weekend. If we're going to push lower, I'm just eyeballing here in terms of, okay, well, shit, we could stop right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, that's likely your 1. If this is our 4, well, there's the 1 up for the 2, or right, we don't know how far that's going to go. We can just kind of lay out a roadmap. Let's say we come down here. Now we're coming back for the 2. Well, you'd be right in the pocket here, and we'd this trend line that we're drawing from the C and the A would be potentially in play, right? So we go 4, 5 up for the 2. All right. Well, we know the 3 is going to be down here. Well, here's a 1, 6, 1, 8. We can give that kind of an estimate. So we could kind of lay it out. Okay, 1, 2, I'll spare the subdivision. Coming down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's pull out on that. Let's see how that would look for us. All right, if we're doing that, where are we? Now, I'm out of log scale. Okay, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's for good measure. Let's keep it at the golden zone. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so 3 would give us potentially, right, here we'd put in our low at the 65. All right. So if you're a bear and you're going to acknowledge every significant pivot, right? They're all fractals, right? So fractal, fractal, fractal. If you're gonna take that, right, then if you're a bear, you're short, right? So because you're playing, if you're playing the triangle A, B, C, D, E into the 4, you're already short. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're looking at to come down here 28, right? We're going to break this low, right? That would be the expectation, although it's not a necessity, but the expectation would be break that low. So here we go. We're coming down here. We're going to challenge the 65. Put us at 28.5. Well, let's just back up again, right? So let's look at that structure there. If that's 1, 2, let's just do a little. Man, it's not too hard to do. Okay, well, so this lines up right as we come out of. Well, here let's Here, I'll just hide those. Let's hide those. All right, so 1, 2, well, look at this confluence down here on that low, right? This is the liquidation wick. Now, I'll let you decide whether or not you think that's coincidence. All right, so from the 2 that we pulled up to the high, that's the golden zone out of log. From the 1 projected from the 2, that's the 1618. If you can see it here, 1618, 175 to the tick. All right, do you think that's random? If you've been watching my channel for more than a minute, you know what my view would be there, right? There are no random pivots of significance. So here we come down here, we get a double bang on the 618, on the golden zone, the 1618. Okay, so there's the 3. Well, look at that reaction. Okay, well, that's got to be the A, B, C, D, E. All right, here we go. So let's carry on. Now, if that's the 4 here, okay, look, do you see where I am here? I'm putting it right on that pivot. Okay, now we're on. Look what I've got here. That's the 618, the length of the 1, right? So Elliotticians, we're going to this common target for a fifth, right? If we're going to turn here, well, that 618, the length of the 1 projected from the proposed 4 is sitting on top of the 65, right? So, which we know algorithms use. There's the here it is. Oh, let's see if I can. Right. So if that's the here, we'll do it this way. So if we've got 3, 4, and we're going 1, 2, well, then that's what I was just kind of putting down there. If this is 1, right now I don't have this, right? So this is not as reliable as what we just looked at here. But if I'm just projecting, right, saying, okay, well, if I'm going to come down here, maybe I finish right here, get the 2 back. Well, I got pretty good cluster down here, but here's my 1618, 175 window. Let's just use it. Okay, retrace for the 4. I'm not anticipating the overlap of the 1. Oh, of course it could, right? We could end with a diagonal, 3, 4. Now we're coming down here. Pretty nice little cluster right here, which would be putting us at 28.6, 28.5, right? So the golden zone, the 65s is right at 28.5. So if you're coming down here, well, careful about trying to catch the falling knife, but that would be a mighty technical pivot. So always, as you'll hear, you guys know, right? I'm going to tell you, if you don't want to buy the falling knife, wait for the reaction, right? Wait for a reaction, and then when you get the reaction, take the first retrace, because now we know where the stop is, right? Every pivot is always a target. If they can't get it, now here we go. I mean, just not rocket science, right? Just working through. Okay, all right. Granted, I don't have this. But it strikes me that if you're a bear, you're already short off of this. Excuse me. So certainly a very reasonable scenario here. Not what I'd prefer to see happen, but if we come down here, I'm a buyer. Of course, my view is long term, to be thinking about Bitcoin, where it's going to be 3 years from now, not 3 days, 3 minutes, 3 weeks, 3 months. Where's it going to be in 22, 23, 24, 25? I don't think there's much question about where well, my view, right, we'll be substantially higher. We'll blow through that 65 top with ease. But that's my view, right? I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. So that plenty of time to wait and see how that resolves. Well, so this is all relatively straightforward Elliott, right? This is not that hard to figure out. Okay, A, B, C, D, E. All right, good. Here we go. Come down for a 5. I got technical levels. I can just apply straight Elliott by the book. The bigger issue, and I think the more challenging, as I transition from bear to bull, in terms of a potential scenario here. Well, so let me just wrap up. If we come down here, this would be, so remember, this is the golden zone from the proposed 2 low, right? So this would be, and how about I just call it an area of interest, right? All right, I will be, that's back the truck up moment for me. But it's not for everybody, and not everybody's going to agree. Then people will be saying, oh shit, we're going to, bears, think it's going back to 0. But all of that said, we've got a reasonable scenario here and a target that would be, really at the end of the day, right? Golden zone. We know it reacts at the golden zone. Now we can put it back in log scale and auto this back here and look at where that would put us. Pop this up here. we'd be at, well, here's the 100, right? Length of we'd be blowing through the 618. We'd be heading towards the 100, right? The next most common target for the fifth, but now we're in log scale. We're going lower. We're going to the 1618. The length of the 1 projected from the proposed 4 in the triangle. Well, now we're breaking below the 50. We're at 23, right? We're heading towards the 17 high, which is 19.6, right? Which is marked here in this yellow line. Can't eliminate it, right? You can certainly see. So, but if this is 1, 2, well, man, we're going to have a big 3 for us to get that low. So right now, I don't, this is an area of interest. I'd be certainly, well, of course, we'll all see that. We'll have plenty of time. And what are we talking about? This is, oh, it's another 10K to come down. All right, so I think everybody can look at this and say, well, if it comes down, okay, I understand what's happening. That was the 4. We come out of the triangle. We finish the 5. And then it becomes, we're back to that big picture question. Is that an A wave or is that the C wave completing after an irregular top, right? That's the conundrum here in Bitcoin right now. So then you have to ask yourself, well, okay, I've worked through that. I've got a roadmap here. I understand it. It makes sense. It's consistent with rules and guidelines. I can do all my fib analysis here and get some fat targets, right? I understand. If we go down this way, I'm not confused. The bigger question, I think, for all of us at this point is, well, what if we don't? What if we start to track higher? How are we going to account for all of this? What is such an obvious triangle, right? Everybody says, oh, so obvious. Well, what if we invalidate the triangle? How are we going to count this? How are we going to deal with this mess? Well, that's what I was, intended to try and tackle here today, because everybody is so certain we're going down. You got to think about, well, hey, can I get an equally effective roadmap here if I'm going to come out of here and start to break out? Well, here, this is the proposed 3-4 here in blue. Here's the 23.38, right? The range that we're stuck in. Right. This is the range. We just drew this up on the other chart, right? So if we're not going down here to break below this and we start to rally out of here, how do we deal with that? Can we lay out a roadmap there? Well, it turns out you can. I think that's everything I need to cover here. So let me come over here. So back to the wick rejection where we started with. So just looking at price action. Right, it's been tested. Well, you really got 3 tests there, right? You had the initial move, then the test, then another test. Doesn't quite make it there, right? Are we headed towards another test? Well, certainly could be. Well, let's just look at that and say, okay, well, now we can understand if it's going to come down here, right? We're not lost under what's happening, right? If it's 5, it's either starting or ending, right? So I'll leave it to your judgment as to whether or not you think that we're starting or ending. All right, let's go look at this. All right, so you got to back out. So I went all the way down to a 15. Well, let me go out to the hourly here and see how we can make sense of this. So if this is our top here, and we're going to go AB, right? So this is the count that would have us ending here the big 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So this is what many anticipated here ends up being correct. I was reluctant to go with this here because I think this is the impulse, right? So I took a couple of stops down here. Well, now if we're coming here, so if it's A and it's B and we're coming down here, well, could we be done here? Is there a scenario here that could get us done? Well, yes, but it's ugly, but it's very doable. All right, so let's just look at it. So the idea being, if this is A, right, if we're going to finish, we're going to hang on to the ending diagonal. We're going to go 5 into an A, 3 into a B. Well, here I'm coming down here. Could I be done? Well, we kind of touched on this last week, but I think this is, now we got a little bit more data here, and I think this is starting to become more clear. Now, since we've been through the scenario of the triangle, I'm gonna pull this off, right? Again, everybody think that's what's happening. Makes me think, if everybody thinks it, I want to be prepared for if they're wrong, right? Because the majority are almost always wrong. Almost always wrong. Okay, well, if we're gonna do it, it requires, these wicks are your problem, right? So these wicks, the rejection wicks are the problem because we have extremes, right? And you can understand it in crypto where you have so much leverage, right? So who's getting liquidated here, right? This is where we started, right? Retail is just getting liquidated. Anyone levered just gets completely buried there. Well, now I've wicked this off here down on the 15. We'll get back there in a second. This is the lowest closing body. So if I look at this and I think, okay, well, if that's potentially, we're coming into the B, I got to get 5 down and I got to finish down here. Well, lo and behold, I can do it. So it requires you acknowledging that these wicks are liquidation wicks, if you will. Right? The market rejects them so quickly, you can kind of talk yourself into, all right, well, potentially I got to rethink the entire count because these wicks are so problematic. So let's just work through the count. Well, if I start off from the top, I can go 1, 2. Now this is questionable, right? So here's the lowest close. So do I have to do it this way and truncate the 5? Maybe. A, B, C could work, right? So you could do it here, but now you're into a really, really rough ride down here to go 1, 2 and get a 3, 4, 5 in there. It really doesn't quite work, right? It's a force fit. So what does that leave you? Well, it would leave you the truncation here, and then we'd go A, B, C into the 2. All right, so let's just, for the possibility here, let's put that there. Okay, so you see it better in a line chart here. I was going to save this here, but since we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 get to the 3. So we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gets me to the 1. A, B, C into the 2. All right, but let's go back here. We'll come back to this. Okay, 1, 2. Right? I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So I've got my impulse in there. So I can go 1, 2, 3. Although you could do this a couple of different ways. Right? It doesn't really matter at this point. You could go 3, A, B, C into the 4. But I think we get a lower low here. A, B, C into the 4. We don't challenge the 1. Big, just the waterfall in the 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We could finish. Okay, well, here's that rip here. Now we come down to here's that big push up that we have to account for. So A, B, C into the 4, right? It's a candidate. Now, this is where it gets a little ugly here because you can't finish it in an impulse if you're counting all of these rejection wicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5 all day long, right? It's a 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Now, is it an impulse? No, it's not an impulse because of the 4. So you got to treat it like a diagonal, but it's a candidate here. Now, note when I go back, as we just did up here, kind of resolve with these wicks. When I go to a line chart, boy, the whole thing really clears up. So this then becomes a much better looking 5 of the 3, A, B, C into the 4. Then I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my 3 goes up here, the 1 goes up here, the 2, either one, doesn't really matter. 3, 4. I don't challenge that 1, and then I'm down for the 5. Now you say, well, okay, man. Well, you're using the line chart to fit your bias. Okay, maybe. I'm just looking at scenarios here. Right? Granted, there's nobody watching here who doesn't know my bias. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that what I'm doing? Maybe. Coming out of that, okay, can I get 5? Let's go back. All right, let's just acknowledge that. Right, you gotta if you're doing the same thing and you're looking at those line closes, well, acknowledge that you're accommodating a bias, right? Which I'm doing for all of us right here. So is myself included, right? A lot of times when I'm talking through here, I'm talking to myself at the same time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So as far as I'm concerned, you could squeeze it, pinch it, label it, however you want. That's a 5 all day. All right, it's ugly, and you got to make it a diagonal, but that's 5 swings. Right? So coming off of that, okay, can I get 5 into here? Well, if we finish down here, what this requires is that I truncate here. That this has to be the 3. That's the 5 of the 3, right? We just went through this. 1, 2, 3, 4, extension in the 5th. That's the 5 of the 3, A, B, C. Here's the big, which is define the range that we're in, A, B, C. I finish in a 5, but I'm truncating. Now, once again, if I go to the line chart, here's the 3, here's the 4, here's the 5. Right? Here's our lowest close. And I can get 5 coming off of that, but let's just stay with it, right? Truncation, I go there very reluctantly. It's the abnormal, right? It's not what we want to see, right? It makes it more difficult because you have to make an assumption here. So at least the close kind of puts you in the ballpark, right? Where you're not just going, oh, fuck, all right, I want it to be, I want it to go higher because I'm long, right? You're at least you're basing off of, I would call it sound TA, right? Working, many people, they only do the closes, right? But that being said, right? So if this is going to hold as our truncation, well, can I get out of here? Can I get out of here with something other than this triangle that seems to be so persistent? Well, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can get an impulse out of the low here. My truncated 5 here. Let's go down to the 15 minutes. I can show you what I was doing there. I'm going to bring this back in. All right, here's the lowest. I think it's on the 15. Here's the lowest close. If you can see that, right? So I acknowledge the wick is there, right? It was so quickly rejected. I'm just using the lowest close, right? So I can kind of use that as a frame of reference. So I would, at a 15-minute level, just do it like this, right? Like I say, okay, well, there's my support. Okay, tested, rejected. Tested again, rejected. Does it need to be tested again? Maybe. But that's my support here. Okay, let's carry on, right? So if this is going to hold as the 4 here, the big 4, right, where we started out here, this would have to be here would be the finish, right? We'd have the truncate there. There it is, right? Now, can I get out of here? No, I can get 5 into that. Now this, right? Elliotticians may differ on how to count this, but I think it's there's 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a little skinny. You got to use this as your B to get into the B here. 1, 2, 3. You could do this multiple ways, right? It doesn't really matter, right? So I can get 5 into that. So here I've come down. Now I've got a candidate here for the ABC of a 2. It's deep, right? Not doesn't invalidate the 2. But now here's the problem, right? Now this looked a little bit better before Elon's tweet. Fucking Elon, right? But you can't. I'm not worried about Elon's tweet. 1, 2. Okay, so what does that do to the TA? Well, I got to deal with this as a diagonal, right? I'm going to put that as my 1. Okay, 1, 2. It looks like, then the tweet this morning looked like maybe we had an impulse coming out here, but now you got to go into an ABC here. Well, I was a little more concerned until I pulled up and checked that, right? And so you guys have heard me say this many times, right? Members, we all know this from the belt system. If we're looking for the 4 in a diagonal, we want to look for something technical between the start of the 1 and the pivot of the 3. Now, I'm going to assume that every member and everyone who has listened to my teaching has already done that. What do we do? Where did the Elon tweet take us? Right to the golden zone. All right, which should surprise exactly 0 people. All right, so 1, 2, oh man, that's a bitch, right? But I can go 1, 2, I can get the C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I can't get the impulse, right? So you got to go A, B, C. Now this would, ideally, you see it at the 50, right? That's textbook. We get a little overlap here. You get the structure at the 50, the POC relative to this visible range. We got it, right? You got it. Well, we'll see, right? There's the target. So looking, let's see, we're out of log. I might do this 2 ways. Right, so I do here, I just go to the top. All right, so that's deeper than you want, right? So the overlap here, right? This is just being a regression channel. So what you're concerned about here is that we come back up, tap it, and then we head down, right? So the kiss goodbye. Okay, what's one possibility here? The other is we just do a traditional channel, and we could just do it this way. Say, okay, can that hold? Okay, I don't love it, right? We just, it's not, you might start, right, doing this as the 1, 2. There's the break, so now we're expanding it. So you could draw a sliding parallel here. But this kind of gets my interest because the other variable, right, we could do it through, we'd have a series of these, a set of median lines. Right now we're far enough out here. Well, now you're putting you probably put the 200 on that and make that work. So let's get 175. That'll do it. Let's get the green on there. And what do I want here? I like those to be dashed. Okay. So here's the 175. All right. Okay. Not what I would prefer, but there it is nonetheless. So I would be looking at 2 things. All right, so I'd be looking here to here, right? We had the break. We go 786 here. Right, so that was, so it doesn't invalidate the idea that we won 2, right? It's very common for a 2. Remember, 2, always a push to get to that low, right? They can't do it, right? And then back we come the other direction. Well, we could do the same thing here, right? Same idea. Right, now it's a little short of what you'd prefer, but since we're trading this as a diagonal, okay, well, and by short, I mean the length of time here. So if we're going to do this, the 80% is awful easy to get, right? Just one little pop here, and we'll get our 80%. Oh, such an annoyance for me. Okay, we can pop up here. Now, can we get through, right? We know that's going to be resistance. You can see the resistance sitting right there. Right? It's not too hard to spot this. Right? I might use the wick high there. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A, B. You have to do it that way. So you're gonna have to go A, B down for the C for that to be done here. All right, now can we come out of here? Well, this is going to be an important leg. So if we roll over here, one of the benefits of this count here, if you're in line to be seeing this the same way, is that we have clear invalidation points, right? So if this gets taken out, right, well, then no longer do we have the possibility of that diagonal. We take this out, and then we're back into, okay, well, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're starting into the 1, and perhaps the triangle is resolved lower, and we're going down to break all these lies, or all these lows, or at the very least test them. So this would be an important pivot. Oh God. That right on it. 34,150. Oh, let's add an alert there. I'm going to do it just while I'm doing it right here, right? So I want to know if we're breaking that, right? So this whole thing falls apart. So as we sit here going into the weekend and recognizing that, boy, that sure looks, well, you could sure see how this could be the 4 and the 5 comes down here. That's going to start to get ugly, and we don't want a 5 to come out of here. Well, really, at this point, this needs to hold. All right, we don't want to come down and threaten this pivot, and then the potential of the diag breaks wide open. And right now, oh, Jesus, come on. Is this what we're looking at? Well, this is going to need to go, right? So bulls really need to see this play, right? Now here's getting back into that 3, 4. Well, here's the range from the 38 to the 23. That's the range. So back up to 42-ish. Right here's 41,771. If we're coming up towards this to complete this leading diag, then things are going to start to look a whole lot better. And then back here to this truncation, which is kind of the problem for an Elliottian here. Of course, right? Elliott wrote about truncations, right? It's not that we don't see them; it's just the abnormal, right? You want to, if you're forced to go there. Well, let me put it to you this way: if we break higher, that's how every Elliottian is going to come back here and go, "Well, shit, right? I guess we had a truncation." But if this rolls over, then everyone's, "Hey, well, fuck! I told you it was a triangle." Everybody on the planet saw that it was a triangle, all right? If you're that guy, you should be short right now. Are you? Right? Are you short? I'm not. I'm looking for places to buy. So we'll see, right, how this resolves here. That would be going up there. That's the other degree right here. Back to the benefits of changing your degree size and your colors. All right, so 1, 2. Can I get there? Now, that's a big leg. That really needs to happen. So now we come back here and we say, okay, well, if I can get that, and there's my golden zone. Even here, it's fine with me. Now, nothing says we have to stop here, but you can kind of look at that and say, well, boy, we'd sure have some resistance up here. Just kind of doing the same thing, right? Carrying it forward. So if I carry this way. Now, some members of my team, right, Sensei Tudum and some others think that we're just going to go sideways. We could go sideways for the rest of the summer, which is certainly possible. This could all turn into some giant, big double combo. It's all sorts of scenarios here. But as it sits right now, here's what you got to be asking yourself if you're a bear, right? If you think that's 1, 2, and we put the 3 in at the golden zone, well, you got some, right? Are you gonna anticipate that? I'll tell you one thing, that's a very dangerous place to be entering short at any golden zone ever, at any time, on any time frame in Bitcoin, right? I've shown it, God knows, I can't even imagine how many times I've shown Bitcoin react at the golden zone. Now, of course, one side always breaks, right? If we just went golden zone, we'd go sideways forever, right? So it's not that this can't break, right? One side always breaks at all degrees, always. So this is not an inevitability that we're going here. This is just one scenario. But what it would do is, if we can do this, right? And I'm not adding to longs here off of this. So take that for what it's worth. I didn't sit here and buy that. I'm plenty long. But so as we sit here, but if we get this to kick and we go up here and finish that 5, I think, well, then we blow up the triangle, and then I'm chomping at the bit to get that. Right, so now we'd pull it back and say, okay, if this goes, if we get, let's just go ahead and just say we get, middle of it, we get that algo, close, almost got it. Leading diag into the 1, ABC into the 2. If I come back to golden zone here, right at the same, right, edge of value, we come back here, oh yeah, I'm a buyer. I usually don't like to buy on Fridays, right, going into the weekend, because it's such a wild card. You just never know what's going to happen. But if we're going to go, now here I'm on a 15 minutes, so this could happen tonight, before breakfast. This could all play itself out, right? So, we had this conversation this morning with a few guys. One in particular is one of my best students as an Elliottian, acknowledging that when you're down below a 15-minute and you're trying to work Elliott counts, you're changing them all the time, right? So for a day trader, questionable as to whether or not that's the best approach. But out here, so for me, 15 and above, I think you can maintain an Elliott count here, and you'll find consistency there. That doesn't mean that counts don't change. They change all the time. That's all we get right now. It's just a snapshot in time. Okay, if this is going to hold here, we're going to finish this as the 1 up here, and I'm coming back down here. I'm a buyer, right? And so why? Am I looking at wallet flows? Am I looking at hash rates? No, I'm not. Not that that's not valuable, and that there's information there to glean. I'm just buying it off of the technicals. But am I going to just buy here and not put a stop on it? Well, obviously not, right? So all of this. These are all every pivot is a target, every one on both sides, always, right? This is target practice. This guy here, I promise you, there were buyers there. Their only objective was to get the stops that were there. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. It's always a push to get the stops, because where are all the stops, right? At the pivots. So it tells you more when they can't get them than when they do get them. So down here, this is what's interesting here, right? So we work all the way back here. They could not get those stops. I promise you, muscle was going after those stops. Couldn't get it, right? That's why it's a rejection. Rejection. It's kind of a slow rolling rejection, but I promise you this, that's a rejection right there, right? That's software saying, right? I'm a buyer there. But right, of course, let's not be one-sided about it. There's going to be an algo sitting right there with this objective right there. There's their target right on the 786. Now, what is the problem here? Well, that would have, you'd be so close, right, to go 786 in a diag. Okay, again, it's not that it's never happened before, but that is not what we as bulls want to see. We do not want this threatened. We don't want this to break. But now here we are in a fib fight. Where's the next resistance? Well, if it's not going to be the 50, we're going to come right up here. Or you kind of look across, high volume node. You could see that being a technical event, but that's not going to be good for bulls. So if you're thinking about entering here, or you want to play any sort of a retrace, I think you put your stop right here. I have to make that distinction. This is your trading Bitcoin, not your holding Bitcoin. You're trading Bitcoin. For me, if I'm long here, if we get a little retrace and I'm feeling like I want to run something there, my stop's right there, right? I might use the 707. I didn't mean to draw a triangle. I might use 707. At most, that's the absolute most I would give it. There's a 707. What do we got there? 30, 35, 2. Most that I would give it. Because I don't want it, because I know that if they can get to that pivot, this whole thing blows up, right? So if they get that pivot, then they're after that pivot. They get that one, they're after that one, right? It's just a cascading, because every pivot, why, right? So I was saying, why are they doing that? Well, there's stops under each one of those, so that's potentially fuel. But, of course, the reality is, as we talk about when we look at breakouts, often that fuel gets used against you, right? So the stops get run here, and then they take it down. We talked about that in FX many times, right? They run the stops, then they head the other direction. So the breakout trader gets bent over, as they do most times. So, okay, there we go. Shit, 45 minutes. Okay, I did not mean to go that long. Okay, guys, I guess that was hyper detail. I had no intention to make it that long, but I'll be damned if there it is. Okay, so there we sit, right? That's the game plan here. Next test, right? What happens there, right? Can we, right? Remember, one side's got to break. Right? Can we get through here? I'm going to start to feel better about getting to that target if we can break this one. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays. Okay, I went way too long. All right, guys, have a great weekend. As always, you can join us for free. Hit us in the Discord. Start with the white belt. Lots of meat for you to dig into before you get into any sort of a investment into our material. So there you go. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys. Members, I'll see you on Monday. Okay, guys, take